Hello everyone, welcome back. So today we are going to start a very important and a different kind of unit which you were waiting all for a long time. So the today unit which we are going to start is related something to physics. Now it is not directly related to physics, but it is a kind of physics, that is we popularly call it as nuclear physics. It is being a study of nuclear physics for many years, and these nuclear physics studies have a major part in one of the fields, and that is power generation field. So today we are going to see something regarding the power generation, but not exactly related to power generation, but how the power generation has created a mishap, that is accidents among the major countries. Some of the major countries which is being referred to us for our studies is nothing else but United States, then it's Soviet Union, and a nuclear power plant which is something related to Ukraine, etc., etc. So today we are going to see the very first and the biggest nuclear accident considered till then and till today in the US states, that is United States. This accident is called as 3 Mile Island accident. Many of them, even though it is called as 3 Mile Island accident, do prefer to call it as TMI accident. So there was a question for the last time in your examination that give the full form of TMI. That means an abbreviation was used, that is TMI, and you had to name the TMI in complete form, and that is 3 Mile Island accident. Now, where did this accident took place? How was the accident? What was the purpose of the accident? What are the causes which are caused due to the accident? That means health effects or economical effects. All these things and many more we are going to see in the lecture. So let's start with where did the actual accident took place. This 3 Mile Island accident took place in an island which is called as uh, around 10 miles in the Harrisburg Peninsula. So basically this was near a river called as Susquehanna River Peninsula, and this is in near Harrisburg Island. So this particular factory, nuclear factory or nuclear reactor was situated on an island, and this island was having around two nuclear power plants. That means it was not only one nuclear power plant, it was having two reactors. These reactors were actually started for the generation of power energies. So we had seen in the last lecture something called as fission and fusion. So if you remember what do you mean by fission and what do you mean by fusion, you will be very much clear with these accidents. Also, the two power plants which were created, nuclear power plants which were created, it was having one of the greatest capacity to generate the powers. That is, generation of power was very much because it was using a product called as uranium rods. So we had also discussed one major thing in the last lecture, that the products such as uranium or plutonium are basically used in nuclear power plants because they generate a lot of energy, because they have the capacity to easily go under a process called as fission. Okay, so fission हुआ था इस पावर प्लांट में, और फिशन की वजह से ही जो भी एक्सीडेंट हुआ है वो आज भी रिएक्शन दिखा रहा है. So basically there was a fission process, and how did this fission process took place we'll study now. So you have to keep in mind the place, that is it is 10 miles from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. It is resided, or it is located in the United States of America, and it is considered till now the biggest accident, nuclear accident till date. So this is some of the picture of the nuclear accident, and you might be seeing that there are four power plants basically. But let me tell you one thing: the accident when it took place, it was having two power plants, right? So now they have actually closed on one power plant completely where the accident took place. Reason is because it is having a large amount of radiation which is now also going on in the furnace, and that is the reason one cannot work over there. So how did it took place? Even though you can see the slide, I must tell you that you should write down whatever I am going to tell you, because even though we are looking forward from the help of a slide, let me suggest you that we are going to see into the very minorities of the accident. Reason was accident is being discussed very depthfully in our syllabus. So this accident took place in unit number 2. There were two units, as I said, that is unit number 1 and unit number 2. But the accident took place in unit number 2. Reason is because there was a partial reactor meltdown. That means we know that uranium rods are being used in the reactors, nuclear reactors, for generation of energy, because they undergo easy fission process. थोड़ी सी एनर्जी प्रोवाइड करो आप यूरेनियम रॉड्स को और वो बहुत जल्दी फिशन प्रोसेस में चला जाता है, जिसकी वजह से न्यूक्लियाई सेपरेट होना शुरू हो जाता है। और जितना ज़्यादा न्यूक्लियाई फास्ट सेपरेट होगा, जितना वो इजीली ब्रेक डाउन होगा, उतनी ही ज़्यादा जल्दी तरीके से आपकी एनर्जी जनरेट होगी। दैट मीन्स आप स्मॉल अमाउंट ऑफ एनर्जी प्रोवाइड करोगे और लार्ज अमाउंट ऑफ एनर्जी रिगेन करोगे। ओके, सो दैट इज द रीजन हम यूरेनियम यूज करते या फिर प्लूटोनियम यूज करते। बट हुआ क्या था, rather than undergoing a normal reaction on 28th of March 1979. So you have to keep this date also in mind very carefully. That is 28th of March 1979, around at 4 o'clock in the morning. Okay, so it was a deep sleep for everyone, but all of a suddenly what happened, there was a sudden breakdown in the nuclear power plant. And what happened, the uranium fuel rods, it started to liquefy. Okay, so let me now explain it in detail. For example, consider that this is a plant. Okay, I'm not saying this is a plant too, I'm just giving you an example. So consider this is the plant, and this plant is having a uranium rods in it. So this plant will be provided, of course this is a plant, I agree, but the control system is somewhere here, because you know each and everything should be controlled and monitored with the help of computers, right? The same thing happened over here. व्हाट हैपेंड, ये न्यूक्लियर पावर प्लांट्स तैयार किए गए थे, और ये न्यूक्लियर पावर प्लांट्स में क्या था, तो इट वाज जनरेटिंग एनर्जी विद द हेल्प ऑफ यूरेनियम रॉड्स। अब यूरेनियम रॉड्स को एनर्जी प्रोवाइड करने का मतलब होता है कि आपको बाहर से इलेक्ट्रिसिटी या फिर बाहर से कोई सोर्स प्रोवाइड करना होगा थोड़ी सी एनर्जी प्रोवाइड करने के लिए। एट द सेम टाइम हमने लास्ट लेक्चर में एक पॉइंट डिस्कस किया था और वो एंडिंग में था, दैट इज द यूज ऑफ कूलेंट। और कूलेंट हमने डिस्कस किया था, इट इज नथिंग एल्स बट वाटर विच इज यूज्ड एज अ कूलेंट। द सेम थिंग हैपेंड ओवर हियर नाउ। नाउ व्हाट हैपेंस, यू कैन सी इन दिस पिक्चर दैट द smoke is coming out. Now how is the smoke coming out? That means energy is being created, there is a reaction taking place in the nuclear reactor, and when the reaction is taking place, a smoke is being released out. Okay, now this smoke is nothing else but an effluent material, that means a waste material which is being released out. At the same time, it also contains some amount of heat energy which is being converted into a fume form. That is, जितना ज़्यादा हीट हो जाएगा यूरेनियम, उसको कूल करने का जरूरत पड़ेगा, और वो काम कौन करेगा, दैट इज वाटर। So इसीलिए आप देख सकते हो न्यूक्लियर रिएक्टर बेसिकली इज बीइंग बिल्ट ऑन नियर द रिवर साइड्स। ओके, so that is one more reason, because easy availability of water should be there, because it needs a lot of water to cool down the rods. Now what happened, on the 28th of March at 4 a.m. न्यूक्लियर रिएक्टर 2, दैट मीन्स यूनिट 2 में अचानक से खराबी हो गई थी, और यूरेनियम फ्यूल रॉड जो थे, जो उस पर्टिकुलर रिएक्टर में थे, लेट्स कंसिडर दिस रिएक्टर, उस रिएक्टर में न्यूक्लियर फ्यूल रॉड जो थे वो मेल्ट डाउन होना शुरू हो गए थे। अब ये मेल्ट डाउन होना क्यों शुरू हो गए थे? रीजन इज बिकॉज मेल्ट डाउन तो होना नहीं चाहिए, बिकॉज आई एम प्रोवाइडिंग एन एनर्जी for getting an energy, but at the same time I am giving out the water also. That means मैं coolant भी provide कर रही हूँ, मैं energy भी provide कर रही हूँ, तो मेरा तो balance होना चाहिए. It should not actually cause any mishap. But actually what happened was because of two reasons. The first reason, what scientists and major of the examiners who later on conveyed or studied the nuclear power plant, they found out that there were two reasons due to which this power generation had a major mishap or an accident. And first reason was a human error. दैट मीन्स ह्यूमन इतने स्किल्ड नहीं थे जो इस पावर प्लांट को कंट्रोल कर रहे थे, उस उनमें इतना ज्यादा कैपेबिलिटी नहीं था, कंप्यूटर स्किल्ड नहीं थे कि वो पावर प्लांट के प्रॉब्लम को समझ पाते और उसमें चेंजेस कर पाते. On an other hand, the second reason was there was a minor problem in the valve. Okay, now let's move on again to this picture so that it becomes easy for you people. So we are seeing that over here the smoke is coming out. Now when the smoke is coming out, that means there should be somewhere over here in the center a piece for the absorption of dust material. Okay, that means जैसे valve होते हैं, जैसे खुलने और बंद होने के लिए valve का काम होता है, ये valve ऑलमोस्ट हर एक न्यूक्लियर रिएक्टर्स में होते हैं और इनका काम होता है that to release out the smoke or to release out the heat and to release out the effluent material which is generated in the nuclear reactor. Now what happened, unit number 2 में जो प्रॉब्लम हुआ था वो ये था कि all of a suddenly इसमें जो valve था, this valve was basically closed. So you can see over here with this example it might give you much more clear evidences what had happened at that time. So basically होता क्या है that the valve is releasing out the material fumes and the rods are continuously generating the electricity. But what happened, the valve all of a suddenly got shut down. दैट मीन्स वाल्व ने काम करना बंद कर दिया था. अब काम करना बंद कर दिया था, इसका मतलब क्या हुआ, सबसे बड़ा प्रॉब्लम शुरू हो गया था. Now this problem had started at 4 am in the morning because कूलेंट मटेरियल जो था उसका कंट्रोल खत्म हो गया था. कूलेंट मटेरियल इजीली पास नहीं हो रहा था बिकॉज वाल्व ओपन नहीं हो रहे थे. ओके, सो इट्स लाइक अ वाटर टैप. अगर आप ध्यान से देखो तो वाल्व का काम कैसे होगा, किसी वाटर टैप की तरह होगा कि फॉर एग्जाम्पल आपका कूलेंट मटेरियल आपको प्रोवाइड करना है रिएक्टर में, तो अपने आप वाल्व खुलना चाहिए, तो अपने आप तो ये खुलेगा नहीं. सो इट माइट हैव बीन अ कंट्रोल बाय सम कंप्यूटराइज्ड सिस्टम बिकॉज यू हैव सीन द रिएक्टर और द प्लांट इज वेरी ह्यूज. So what would have been the problem? Valve का functioning because of human error समझ में नहीं आया कब खोलना है कब बंद करना है valve को. It got disturbed and this valve did not open. ये ओपन ना होने की वजह से क्या हुआ था, जो कूलेंट मटेरियल रॉड्स को कूल करने के लिए अंदर जाना चाहिए था, दैट मीन्स वाटर जो रॉड्स के आसपास के कंटेनर में जाके रॉड्स को कूल करना चाहिए था, वो रॉड्स तक पहुंचा ही नहीं पानी. एंड ऑल ऑफ अ सडनली व्हाट हैपेंड, बिकॉज द रॉड्स and the system which was containing a cooling system around the rod did not receive the water, it all of a suddenly started getting heated. ओके, और ये इतना ज्यादा हीट हो चुका था कि इट ऑल ऑफ अ सडनली स्टार्टेड टू गिव अ ह्यूज रिएक्शन. दैट मीन्स यूरेनियम जो रॉड्स थे वो अपने आप मेल्ट डाउन होना शुरू हो गए थे, पिघलना शुरू हो गए थे. एंड इट स्टार्टेड टू मेल्ट डाउन वेरी फास्टली बिकॉज वाल्व में से पानी नहीं आ रहा था, वाल्व अपने आप बंद हो चुके थे. नाउ दिस वाज द फर्स्ट टाइम, दैट मीन्स इट वाज द फर्स्ट प्लेस वेयर एक्चुअली द ह्यूमंस और द कंट्रोलर system might have understood the problem. But what happened, the human could not identify the problem because आप of course reactor में घुस तो नहीं सकते because it is very isolated part, at the same time it is nuclearly active part. So you have to control everything with the help of computer system. So in one of the picture I've shown you this part. Okay, so this was a computer system room where everything was controlled externally for this complete part of nuclear reactor. because valve बंद हो गया था, पानी जाना बंद हो गया था, रॉड्स गर्म होना शुरू हो गए थे, और अगर कूलिंग नहीं मिल रही है यूरेनियम रॉड्स को तो वो ऑफ कोर्स क्या हो जाएंगे, मेल्ट डाउन हो जाएंगे। आप एक एग्जाम्पल कंसिडर कर सकते हो। फॉर एग्जाम्पल, आप आयरन को बहुत ज़्यादा हीट करते हो एट अ ह्यूज फर्नेस, ओके, इतना ज़्यादा हीट करते हो कि उसके बाद में आप उसे कूलिंग नहीं देते हो, सिर्फ हीट करते रहते हो, तो आयरन का क्या होगा, अपने आप वो मेल्ट डाउन होना शुरू हो जाएगा, मतलब पिघलना शुरू हो जाएगा। इट विल टर्न इनटू अ फॉर्म ऑफ अ लावा। सो सेम हैपेंड विद द यूरेनियम इन दिस कोर पार्ट। यूरेनियम पिघलना शुरू हो गया था, कूलेंट नहीं था, बट अभी भी यूरेनियम क्या हो रहा था, पिघल रहा था, बट वो कंटेनर में ही था। इट डिड नॉट स्टार्टेड ब्लास्ट ऑफ द कंटेनर। सो इट वाज अ प्लस पॉइंट। यहाँ पे ह्यूमन को अगर एरर पता चल जाता तो ऑफकोर्स कुछ ना कुछ हो पाता। But later on, what happened? First reason, human did not understand. Now, the second thing which happened was this human, that means this problem, somewhere got an idea. But कब हुआ इसका idea? Around 4 to 5 hours later, when the problem had started. सो ह्यूमन का यहाँ पे सबसे बड़ा प्रॉब्लम हो गया था कि आइडेंटिफाई नहीं हुआ प्रॉब्लम, जबकि तब एट मोमेंट अगर आइडेंटिफाई हो जाता तो सोल्यूशन निकल आता, बट ये आइडेंटिफाई नहीं हुआ, जिसके कारण सोल्यूशन देने के लिए बहुत ज़्यादा देर हो गई थी। Now again the second problem started. What happened? As the human got the problem, they got connected with the problem because of the alarm sounds which were going on in the reactors. They all of a suddenly realized that the valves are being closed. Now what they did, they all of a suddenly tried to open the valve with the help of computer system, and they started to release the water into the valve. Now over here the second biggest mistake took place. That means already the uranium rod were on a meltdown form, वो पिघल रहे थे, and all of a suddenly they started to give the water with a very big jerk. बहुत ज़्यादा force के साथ में ये water insert करने की कोशिश कर रहे थे, but actually जो water insert हो रहा था, अब ये वाटर इंसर्ट होने के साथ साथ बाहर आना बंद हो गया था। रीजन वॉज क्योंकि इतना ज्यादा मेल्टडाउन होने की वजह से सारा कंटेनर जिसमें रॉड थे वो कंटेनर क्या हो गया था, खराब होना शुरू हो गया था, एंड इट हैड चोक्ड ऑल द आउटलेट सिस्टम्स। सो जहाँ से पानी निकलना चाहिए था, बिकॉज ऑफकोर्स हम अगर वाटर प्रोवाइड कर रहे हैं कूलिंग के लिए तो वो बाहर भी निकलना चाहिए, अदरवाइज अगर वो बाहर नहीं निकलता है तो वाटर फिर से बॉईल हो जाएगा। बॉइलिंग वाटर और बाहर का सोर्स ऑफ इलेक्ट्रिसिटी दोनों मिलकर कोर को काफी ज्यादा हीट कर देंगे, बट ऑलरेडी कोर ने क्या कर दिया था, यूरेनियम रॉड ने क्या कर दिया था, इट हैड स्टार्टेड अ मेल्ट डाउन और पूरे वाल्व बंद हो चुके थे। इट हैड स्टार्टेड बीइंग अ शट डाउन फॉर ईच एंड एवरी वाल्व, दैट इज आउटलेट वाल्व एंड इनलेट वाल्व। नाउ बिकॉज ऑफ दिस पानी कैसे भी करके आ गया था अंदर, but it did not come out because the outlet valve was completely shut down and the valve was not working. Now because of this, the water inside the reactor which entered into the uranium reactor for cooling it down actually started to boil. Now again a biggest problem took place, that the boiling took place in such a greater manner that the fuel rod started to collapse down. That means अब ये जो fuel rods थे जो कंट्रोल करने वाले थे, इट स्टार्टेड टू नॉट ओनली मेल्ट डाउन बट टूट के गिरना शुरू हो गए थे। सो यू कैन फाइंड इट इन दिस वन ऑफ द पिक्चर व्हाट माइट हैव टेकन प्लेस। सो कंसिडर that this is a reactor, not consider, this is a reactor, and these are the core rods, that means control rods or fuel rods of uranium. What happened, because these valves were not giving out the water and it was not coming out of the from the source of the core, there was a sudden breakdown of these rod, and this is somewhat a melting process. Okay, so ये जो है part, this is a melted core of uranium. Now you can consider that uranium itself is very dangerous in that case, because if you look for the periodic table of your chemistry, you can find that uranium, plutonium are being placed in the transition state. That means it is one of the heavy and one of the dangerous product considered. So now look at it, when it is getting melted down, ये अपने आप नीचे आना शुरू हो गया था, पिघल कर नीचे आ रहा था. And what happened, it was moving at down part. Okay, now when it is moving at a down part, it is in a state of molten lava. मतलब एक लावा की तरह ये बन चुका था. It was also having a water. So now consider, when it is having a water and it is also having a molten state of uranium, it is a kind of product which will cause an explosion. That means water, that means hydrogen, और gases भी तैयार हो गए थे. That means जो बाहर निकलने का सोर्स था, भाप निकलने का सोर्स था, वो वाल्व भी बंद हो चुका था. And all of a suddenly what happened, there was a large amount of hydrogen atom or hydrogen gas accumulated in the core. Because this gas was getting much and much accumulated at the top core of the nuclear reactor, it started an explosion. Of course, हमने एक पार्ट भी लास्ट टाइम में देखा था, that is called as fusion, and that is taking place with the help of hydrogen. So यहाँ पे हो क्या रहा था, अभी फिशन ऑलरेडी हो रहा था because it was uranium. Now हमने वाटर इंसर्ट कर दिया था, यूरेनियम ऑलरेडी मेल्ट डाउन हो चुका था, बट फिर भी स्टेबल कंडीशन में था. अगर न्यूक्लियर प्लांट को उसी टाइम पे बंद किया जाता तो मे बी इलेक्ट्रिसिटी बंद हो जाती, जिसके कारण यूरेनियम रॉड्स का मेल्ट डाउन होना बंद हो सकता था. बट गलती क्या कर दी ह्यूमंस ने, या फिर हाफ लिटरेट जो इंडस्ट्री थे, या हाफ लिटरेट कंप्लीट नॉलेज ना होने की वजह से ह्यूमन एरर सबसे बड़ा प्रॉब्लम क्रिएट किया कि हमने इलेक्ट्रिसिटी पास बंद ना करते हुए रादर हमने वाटर इंसर्ट कर दिया था. एंड बिकॉज ऑफ दिस वाटर इंसर्शन देयर वाज अ ह्यूज क्रिएशन ऑफ gaseous material which was having a hydrogen gas. And this hydrogen gas, of course, we know when it is provided with the electricity, a huge amount of electricity will cause a fusion and it will turn into a formation of product like hydrogen bombs. दैट मीन्स ब्लास्ट होना शुरू हो जाते हैं. सो सिमिलरली यहाँ पे हुआ, यूरेनियम रॉड्स ने ब्लास्ट करना शुरू कर दिया था. एंड बिकॉज ये काफी ज्यादा मोल्टन स्टेट में था, इट वेंट डाउन लोअर पार्ट ऑफ द न्यूक्लियर रिएक्टर एंड इट स्टार्टेड अ explosion over here. Now explosion कहाँ पे हुआ था? Even though it started in the nuclear reactor, of course there were some rods also present which were in the stable condition in the upper core. But what happened, because of this explosion पूरा reactor ही ऑलमोस्ट डिस्ट्रॉय होना शुरू हो गया था. इसीलिए रॉड्स क्या हो रहे थे, ब्रेक डाउन होना शुरू हो गए थे. दैट मीन्स जो रॉड्स ऑलमोस्ट नॉर्मल पोजीशन में थे, या फिर अभी भी जो रिएक्शन को कंट्रोल कर सकते थे, बिकॉज ऑफ द एक्सप्लोजन इट स्टार्टेड टू ब्रेक डाउन. और जैसे ही ये रॉड्स ब्रेक डाउन होना शुरू हो गए थे, इट स्टार्टेड टू fall into actually the molten state of uranium and hot water, which was actually very much of containing boiling water also, जिसके वजह से कूलेंट खत्म हो गया था, टॉप कोर बहुत ज्यादा गर्म हो गया था, शटडाउन पूरे हो गए थे, सारे वाल्व बंद हो गए थे, एंड देयर वाज ह्यूज एक्सप्लोजन टेकिंग प्लेस इन दिस न्यूक्लियर रिएक्टर. Now what happened, because there were huge explosion taking place in this nuclear reactor, there was emission and there was complete contamination of hydrogen and radioactive material, especially of uranium. Okay, so ये जब दोनों products मिल जाते हैं, there is a huge amount of contamination which is called as effluent. Okay, that means a waste material which cannot be easily converted or easily backdropped or easily reutilized. So that is called as an effluent. और ये effluent इतना बड़ा तैयार हो गया था that scientists have studied later on when the explosion was stopped and it was brought down after many years into a normal condition. They say that it is almost about 13 million curie of radioactive gases which was released at that particular period of around 5 to 6 hours. So you can consider कि almost 5 to 6 hours में ही काफी ज्यादा radioactive gases release out हो गए थे, and this radiation continued for many months together. According to scientists, the 2 days, that means after the explosion and after the release of the gases, contaminated gases, after the 2 days itself only, there were many other incidences found in humans also. Now these incidences were not limited to that typical area only, but they were expanded to a large area, and a very vast area of United States of America was covered with the smoke of uranium and hydrogen. Of course, there were later on cleanup process started, but this cleanup process is not that easy to be carried out. Reason was because किसी भी reactor को ठंडा होने में या फिर किसी भी रिएक्टर को नॉर्मलाइज होने में बहुत ज़्यादा साल लग जाते हैं, and it was one of the biggest nuclear reactor of United States of America. So around it took place, that means according to some of the magazines, some of the report, it says that एक reactor को साफ करने के लिए they took around 12 years. So it is approximately 12 years, but many scientists claim that it was more than 12 years, but for our purpose we can remember that it was around for 12 years which took place to clean up the complete nuclear reactor. But is it possible कि nuclear reactor को clean कर दिया and it is again reusable? It is not actually possible. A reason is because it also contains many gaseous materials and many radioactive material now also in it. Okay, and the estimated cost which was given by many reports of the United States was that it is at that time cost about $973 to clean up, but I guess it would have been more than that. Reason is because it was around 40,000 gallons of radioactive waste water. Okay, that means जो river हमने बाजू में देखा था एक plant के, वो river में around radioactive element जो release out हुआ था वो अराउंड 40,000 गैलन्स था. दैट मीन्स एक रिवर को साफ करने के लिए अराउंड कितना पैसा लगा होगा? तो approximate cost might be of around $1 billion. So consider that to clean a reactor it was $973, and to clean a river it was $1 billion. So it was costing more than that, and the plant was then not again reopened until the 1985. The next part which took place were the major health effects which had taken place after the nuclear reaction, and this major health effects were nothing else but the people were suffering from effects like eye problem, skin problem, and majorly then later on they found that people were having a major effects of cancer, especially lung cancer, skin cancer, because they absorbed a huge radioactive material. Okay, so that was one part. The second thing which later on, that means after many years, the accident took place in 1979, and it was around observed in 1990s that the infant, that means the babies which were born, they were not normal, they were completely abnormal, or they were partially abnormal. That means maybe some say that the babies were not mentally developed. On other hand, they had some kind of hypothyroidism, that means they did not had a good height. Maybe some had a huge height, maybe some had a very dwarf height, maybe by birth itself some were suffering from the problems like cancer or lung problems, etc., etc. So this was a cause which was seen many years later also. This was caused because of one of the major reactor agent, that is iodine, because uranium was being much more sucked by the skin and by the lungs, due to which iodine deficiency हो गई थी. Iodine हमें लगता है जब हमारा थायराइड ग्लैंड डेवलपमेंट में होता है, दैट मीन्स हमारी हाइट जिससे डेवलप होती है या फिर हमारा कोई भी पार्ट विच इज व्हेन वी आर इन अ डेवलपिंग कंडीशन, हमारा थायराइड सबसे ज्यादा मेजर पार्ट प्ले करता है. सो ये जब थायराइड ग्लैंड पे इफेक्ट करेगा किस चीज की वजह से? आयोडीन की कमी की वजह से. सो आयोडीन अगर ज्यादा भी हो जाए तो भी प्रॉब्लम क्रिएट करेगा और कम हो जाए तो भी प्रॉब्लम क्रिएट करेगा. एंड व्हाट हैपेंड, यूरेनियम और हाइड्रोजन होने की वजह से गैसियस मटेरियल में वी आर द पीपल हैड स्टार्टेड लैकिंग behind the iodine 131 component, due to which what happened, the children had a problem of thyroid gland, and because of which they had a problem of mental retardation or maybe height problem, etc, etc. Similarly, this was giving out some of the other major reacting problems. That means और दूसरे gaseous reactant भी हो चुके थे या मिल रहे थे, which was of course because of the other reactants which were also going on in that centers, and it was releasing out xenon. So that is one of the problem which was creating a major cause of health effect in the United States. Some also consider that there might have been a good training product which would be helpful to use these reactors again and again. But us time pe, because they had to start, they had to generate the electricity, they had to generate the energy at a larger amount compared to that of the other countries. They did not equipped the human sources. They could not give much more efficiently skill to the human sources, because of which this problem took place. So this is one of the news article which the New York City had given out when the incident took place, and you can see that these incidents had a major impact on the complete map of the US system. So water was polluted, human was suffering, and there was not only a single person left behind who had a problem of even lung or skin or eye or brain or height or any other normally developed problem for a child. So this reactor is considered to be a major reactor. Reason is again one more point, that the drinking water later on, because of this nuclear reactor, was not again reusable for many years together. Now also they consider that sometimes they can find the genetic effect of this nuclear reactor in some kind of children's or some kind of people today also. So this was one of the incident which we had discussed. I hope you have understood it. If you have not, just go back, revise it and try to understand it. Till then, study hard.